be here. There are three things that inspired this. I'm going to read an excerpt from a short story. First thing is kind of my love of introverts. A lot of memories of more to say about that. Second thing is my dislike of bullies. And third thing is the most Californian I know, which is my wife's 95-year-old deaf grandmother, born and raised in the Sunset. She's more native than fog. And her father was a city photographer, and her uncle was a civic engineer. So way back when 19th Avenue was just a little road going over sand dunes towards the ocean, our Nana's uncle said, "We should make this a big road. People are coming." And they laughed at him at first, and then they listened to him. So 19th, the wideness and havoc of 19th, you can thank to our Nana's uncle. People will come to California. This excerpt from this short story, the narrator is an introvert, and his father has convinced him. His father is an Irish-American plumber in the Sunset, an extrovert. And the father has convinced him to help him with the family business. I think that's a good context. We made doorknob flyers at the Kinko's on Slope. My father drawing the simple ad by hand and me looping rubber bands through the holes. We started at the beginning, Judah and 16th, a straight shot to the ocean following the green panhandle of Golden Gate Park. He'd coast slowly in the van, side door open and foot off the gas, one elbow leaning out the window, a hand on the wheel, and a fifth of black velvet cushioned between his legs. I'd hop out at the beginning of the block with a fistful of flyers, and as he cruised and crooned to Misty River, the only tape he had for his 8-track, I'd hit every doorknob on the street, hoping to beat him by a full house or before he hit the chorus twice, whichever came first. Then I'd hop on the overturned bucket. We tore out the passenger seat to make rooms for pipes and fittings. And if my time was good, my father would offer me a sip of black velvet before my next race through the fog. Because I shared my father's love of whiskey but not his knack with people, I sprinted up each cement walkway, delivered the message, and sprinted away as fast as possible without having to speak to anyone. I was more like my mother, who spent most of her day in her pink bathrobe at the kitchen table, smoking Camel Lights and reading science fiction paperbacks. She had a stack of them, and when she finished one, she would slide it over to me with a 2-word review. Narnia, too gaudy. We'd sit for hours and read, and all she'd offer besides a curt book review was secondhand smoke. I loved her for it. Running up those sidewalks, just the flash of a hand pulling a front drape away, or even the wave from a friendly gardener, gave me the shivers. I even practiced looping flyers on my bedroom doorknob each night. It was my way of praying, instead of kneeling and whispering to some sweet ghost, which is how my mom described my dad's Irish habit of prayer. I raced back and forth in my bedroom and timed myself with a digital watch. I would have been very happy if we had kept tying flyers to doorknobs, drinking black velvet, and singing songs. But there's not a lot of money in that. After a month of flyers and no callbacks, my father announced it was time for follow-ups. Although I had assumed my father had been half napping while I did most of the work, he had been keeping his eyes out for a plumber's favorite client, rich old widows. My father keeping an eye out for the flowered skirted rumps of gardeners that I so feared. The morning we planned to approach clients, my father walked into our kitchen with a necktie on underneath his plumber's overalls. He had shaved and showered, and I could smell the tonic water from 10 feet. His gelled, thinning hair looked crystallized, and his green eyes were full of delight. It was 9 a.m., and my mom was still sleeping upstairs. She would have laughed so hard at him, the plastic curlers in her hair would have clattered all over the room. "It's just me, don't worry, just a shine on." He laughed and tousled my hair. There would be no drinking or singing that day. My father knew my issues with people, my tendency to stare at my feet or chew my nails in the company of others. So after he threw the van into park in front of our first customer, he reached over before I had time to take off my seatbelt. He gripped the belt hard, but not mean. His heavy black eyebrows furrowed, the sign he was serious. I know how you are around people, Robbie. Just try to keep still and don't look at your shoes. Smile. People like smiles. People also like a family business. Just try to smile. I did what my father asked. I avoided staring at the gleam in my polished shoes or fussing my greased and combed hair. I smiled actually until my cheeks ached. But my smile is not easy like my father's. I had to tone it down after a Russian lady offered my father $5 because she thought I was retarded. After the fourth customer, I started sweating and I couldn't stop. Even my scalp sweated, which ran the gel into my eyes and made them red. My father saw I had become a liability, so with Rhonda Wang, a friendly Chinese woman who knew English, he announced his solution. And Miss Wang were offering a special pipe check in your sub-area, no cost. My father slapped my back 3 times. Miss Wang was a short, round woman with a habit of standing with her fists punched into her waist. Keeping her sandaled feet steady, she turned from the waist to consider me, then my father, back and forth. Pale, red-eyed, and sweaty, I was terrified of the idea of climbing underneath into some areas. My fear sealed the deal, though, I think. Miss Wang saw she was getting a free service for someone who clearly didn't want to offer it. She clapped her fat hands twice. Okay, but don't mess up down there, she said. My father walked me to the sub-area hatch in the backyard. He was giddy we had landed a customer. When I reminded him I knew nothing about plumbing, he laughed and patted me on the back. Plumbing isn't about pipes, Robbie. It's about people. I started my pipe checks pretty grudgingly, sure that plumbing had something to do with pipes. But next to sitting at the kitchen table reading sci-fi books, sub-area soon became my favorite place. Hard clay had been mixed with sand dunes in order to build houses, and the sub-areas were cold but solid. I trained myself to follow the main water line through the dark, checking for any moisture like my father had taught. The first trip at Miss Wang spooked me, and I scrambled out and tumbled back into the sunlight at the feet of my father and our patron. My sustained terror assured her that she had gotten something for nothing, which delighted her. She brought us cups of green tea, took my father's business card, and we fixed her toilet the next week. I found my grooves with sub-areas after a few trips. Instead of hanging around up top, standing awkwardly and pulling cobwebs off my clothes as my father held court, I stayed longer underground, catching snippets of conversation through the heating vents. If he had a willing audience, I had time to scramble to the center of the sub-area and stretch out. The cool earth was invigorating on hot days, but pleasant on cool days too. I'd bring my dad's pen light and one of my mom's science fiction books, and read until it was time to go. My only real disturbance came when a mother raccoon hissed from the nest she had built in the fiberglass insulation. Other than that, I love sub-areas.